She saw her billionaire ex at the pediatric care center, and he found out he was the father of her quadruplets. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, eyes fixed on the 4 children playing across the room. "Tell you?" She laughed bitterly, years of pain bubbling to the surface. "You disappeared, Dominic. One day we were planning our future, and the next you were gone. No explanation, no goodbye. Just a text message saying it was over. I thought." He ran a hand through his hair, that familiar gesture that still made her heart ache. "James showed me the messages, the photos. He said you'd been seeing someone else for months." "James?" she repeated, the name tasting like poison on her tongue. "Your best friend. The man who tried to kiss me at your birthday party. The man who asked me out 2 weeks after you left." His face paled as the truth dawned on him. "What?" "He wanted me, Dominic. He always had. And when I rejected him, he made sure to destroy what we had." She fought to keep her voice steady as she gestured toward the children. "And now, 5 years later, you walk into this pediatric center and discover what his lies really cost you. Have you ever wondered what it would take to forgive someone who abandoned you at your most vulnerable moment? What would you do if the person who broke your heart suddenly reappeared, only to discover they'd been manipulated by someone they trusted? This is the story of betrayal, unexpected reunions, and the possibility of second chances that will make you question everything you thought you knew about trust and forgiveness. I'm Mr. Harrison, and today I'm sharing the remarkable story of Nora, Dominic, and the moment that changed their lives forever at a pediatric care center. If you believe in second chances or have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, hit that like button and subscribe to Timeless Love Tales for more stories that will touch your heart. The pediatric care center buzzed with the usual morning activity. Nurses checked charts, parents soothed fussy children, and the antiseptic smell mingled with the scent of coffee from the staff lounge. Nora Winters balanced her 4-year-old quadruplets with practiced efficiency, her voice gentle but firm as she guided them through the waiting room. "Lily, please stay close. Max, don't touch that. Emma, Theo, hold hands, remember?" The children, with their matching dark curls and bright eyes, formed a small parade behind her. 4 identical winter coats in different colors, red, blue, green, and purple, made them look like a tiny, walking rainbow. Nora had dressed them this way since they were babies, a practical solution to telling them apart from a distance. She hadn't slept well the night before. The pediatrician had called personally to reschedule their annual checkup, insisting they come in immediately. "Just a precaution," he'd said, but the urgency in his voice had kept her awake, imagining worst-case scenarios until dawn broke through her bedroom curtains. "Mommy, I'm thirsty." Lily tugged at her sleeve, the smallest of the 4 but always the most vocal. "We'll get water after we see Dr. Bennett," Nora promised, checking in at the reception desk. She felt the familiar weight of exhaustion settling into her bones, the kind that came from years of doing everything alone. Every morning began at 5:30 a.m. in Nora's modest 3-bedroom apartment. She'd prepare breakfast, pack lunches, lay out clothes, and still somehow manage to look presentable for her job as a graphic designer at a small marketing firm. Her boss, Miranda, had been understanding about her situation, allowing her to work flexible hours and occasionally bring the children to the office when childcare fell through. "The doctor will be with you shortly," the receptionist said with a sympathetic smile. "We have a new pediatric specialist consulting today as well." Nora nodded, guiding her brood to the waiting area. As they settled into chairs, she pulled out 4 small activity books from her seemingly bottomless tote bag. The children accepted them eagerly, their little heads bending over colorful pages. She allowed herself a moment to breathe, to simply watch them. For perfect miracles she'd carried beneath her heart. For reasons she'd found the strength to rebuild her life when it had shattered 5 years ago. 5 years. Sometimes it felt like yesterday that she'd been Nora Mitchell, rising star at a prestigious design agency, engaged to Dominic Blackwood, the brilliant doctor-turned-biotech entrepreneur whose company, Blackwood Innovations, was revolutionizing medical technology. They'd met at a charity gala where her agency had donated design services. He'd approached her as she stood alone, admiring a painting. Kandinsky, he'd said, his voice deep and warm. The way he uses color to express emotion rather than form. It's fascinating, isn't it? She turned, surprised to find someone who shared her appreciation for abstract art, and found herself looking into the most intense gray eyes she'd ever seen. Eyes that now stared back at her from four small faces every day. The waiting room door swung open, pulling Nora from her memories. And suddenly there he was. Dominic Blackwood stood in the doorway, as imposing and magnetic as the day he'd walked out of her life. His tailored charcoal suit couldn't disguise the athletic build beneath, and those subtle lines had formed at the corners of his eyes. They only added character to his devastatingly handsome face. 5 years had done nothing to diminish his presence. He still commanded attention without effort, still carried himself with the quiet confidence that came from building a technology empire from nothing. Their eyes met across the room, and the world seemed to narrow to just the two of them. She saw the moment recognition dawned on his face, followed quickly by shock, then something unreadable. "Nora," he said, her name falling from his lips like a forgotten prayer. She couldn't speak, couldn't move. The children, sensing her tension, looked up from their books, curious eyes darting between their mother and the stranger. Dominic's gaze shifted to the children, and she watched as confusion gave way to dawning realization. His eyes widened as he took in their features, the shape of their eyes, the curve of their jaws, the dimples that appeared when they smiled. All unmistakably his. "There," he began, his voice faltering. "Mine," Nora finished firmly, finding her voice at last. "They're mine." But even as she said it, she knew the truth was written across their faces. For pairs of eyes, the exact shade of stormy gray as his, stared back at him with innocent curiosity. "Ms. Winters," a nurse appeared, mercifully breaking the moment. "Dr. Bennett is ready for you and the children." Nora stood quickly, gathering the children's books. "Come on, little ones. Time to see the doctor." As she ushered them toward the examination room, she felt Dominic's eyes following her, burning with questions she wasn't ready to answer. Questions she'd rehearsed responses to for years, never believing she'd actually need them. "Mommy, who was that man?" Max asked, always the most perceptive of her children. "Just someone I used to know," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. The examination passed in a blur. Dr. Bennett explained that recent lab results showed the children might have a rare genetic condition. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but something that required monitoring and possibly specialized treatment. He wanted a pediatric geneticist to consult, someone who specialized in rare hereditary conditions. "We're fortunate to have Dr. Blackwood visiting today," Dr. Bennett explained, oblivious to the tension radiating from Nora. "He's one of the leading experts in pediatric genetics." Before she could protest, the door opened, and Dominic entered, now wearing a white coat over his suit, a stethoscope around his neck. The transformation from billionaire CEO to medical specialist was jarring. "You're a doctor?" The words escaped her before she could stop them. "I never stopped practicing," he replied quietly. "1 day a week, at least. It keeps me grounded." She remembered then how he'd worked his way through medical school before founding his biotech company, how he'd always said that healing people mattered more than making money. It was one of the things she'd loved about him. The next hour was excruciating. Dominic examined each child with gentle, professional hands, asking questions about their development, their health history. Nora answered mechanically, watching as her children warmed to him instantly, giggling at his silly jokes, answering his questions with childish enthusiasm. "What's your favorite color?" he asked Lily as he checked her reflexes. "Purple," she declared proudly, pointing to her coat. "Like my coat. Emma's is green, Theo's is blue, and Max's is red." "That's very helpful," Dominic said, his voice thick with emotion. "It must be hard to tell you apart sometimes." "Mommy never gets us mixed up," Emma chimed in. "She says our hearts are all different colors too, on the inside where you can't see." Dominic's eyes met Nora's over Emma's head, and the pain she saw there made her look away. "They're remarkable," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion he was clearly trying to control. Perfectly healthy, though I'd like to run some additional tests to rule out the condition Dr. Bennett is concerned about. When the examination was complete, Dr. Bennett took the children to the playroom down the hall, leaving Nora and Dominic alone for the first time in 5 years. The silence between them was deafening. If you've ever had a moment where your past and present collided unexpectedly, hit that like button. And if you're wondering how Nora and Dominic will navigate this impossible situation, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. The most revealing part of their confrontation is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what happens when the full truth about James's betrayal comes to light. The confrontation that had been building for 5 years was finally happening, and neither of them seemed prepared for the tidal wave of emotions it unleashed. "Why didn't you tell me?" Dominic finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Nora laughed bitterly. "Tell you? You disappeared, Dominic. One day we were planning our future and the next you were gone. No explanation, no goodbye. Just a text message saying it was over. I thought." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made her heart ache. "James showed me the messages, the photos. He said you'd been seeing someone else for months." "James?" she repeated, the name tasting like poison on her tongue. "Your best friend. The man who tried to kiss me at your birthday party. The man who asked me out 2 weeks after you left." Dominic's face paled. "What?" "He wanted me, Dominic. He always had. And when I rejected him, he made sure to destroy what we had." She crossed her arms, fighting to keep her voice steady. "But you believed him without even asking me, without giving me a chance to explain." "I saw the evidence with my own eyes," he said, but doubt had crept into his voice. "Fabricated evidence," she countered. "I never betrayed you. Never. But you betrayed me when you walked away without a word." He sank into a chair, the weight of her words visibly crushing him. "I was a fool," he whispered. "A complete fool." "Yes, you were." She wouldn't soften this for him, couldn't ease the blow of his own mistakes. "When did you find out about the pregnancy?" 3 weeks after you left. I tried to call you then. Your number was disconnected. I went to your office, but security wouldn't let me in. I even wrote letters that came back unopened." She paused, the memory still painful. "Eventually, I got the message. You didn't want to be found." Dominic looked stricken. "James handled all my communications after the breakup. He said it would be better for me to make a clean break." "Of course he did," Nora said bitterly. "And you trusted him completely." "I was devastated, Nora. I thought the woman I loved had betrayed me. I wasn't thinking clearly. And I was pregnant with quadruplets, abandoned by the man I thought would love me forever. Do you think I was thinking clearly?" Her voice broke slightly. "I had to move back in with my parents. I had to quit my job. I had to figure out how to be a mother to 4 babies all at once, all while trying to heal from what you did to me." The memory of those early days washed over her. The shock of the doctor announcing not 1 baby, but 4. The terrifying complications that led to 3 months of bed rest. Her parents' small house, crowded with baby equipment. The endless nights of feeding, changing, soothing. And through it all, the aching absence of the man who should have been by her side. "My mother had just been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's," she continued, the words pouring out now. "My father was trying to care for her and help with the babies. I was trying to freelance between feedings. We were drowning, Dominic." He stood, taking a step toward her. "I can never undo what happened, but they're my children too, Nora. I've missed 4 years of their lives already. I don't want to miss any more." She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since he'd walked into the waiting room. Behind the success and the confidence, she saw regret etched into the lines of his face. She saw the pain of a man who had just discovered he was a father, who had lost years he could never get back. "They ask about you," she admitted quietly. "Not you specifically, but about their father. I've never lied to them. I've told them that you didn't know about them, that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes." Hope flickered in his eyes. "What else have you told them?" That you're a good man who would have loved them very much if you'd known they existed. It was the truth, or at least what she'd believed was the truth, even in her darkest moments of anger. The night Dominic had left still played in her mind with painful clarity. They'd been planning their wedding, discussing venues over dinner at his penthouse apartment. His phone had buzzed repeatedly with messages from James, but he'd ignored it, focused on her. "The botanical garden in June," he'd said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I can already see you walking toward me, surrounded by flowers." Then his phone had rung, and this time he'd answered. James's voice urgent on the other end. Dominic's expression changing from annoyance to concern to shock. He'd excused himself, disappearing into his office for nearly an hour. When he'd returned, he was a different man. Cold, distant, his eyes hard as he asked her to leave. She'd been confused, hurt, demanding an explanation he wouldn't give. The next morning, the text had come, "I know about him. It's over. Don't contact me again." She tried calling, texting, even going to his apartment, but he was gone. Vanished as if their 2 years together had meant nothing. Now, standing in the pediatric center, the truth was finally emerging. James had orchestrated everything, feeding Dominic lies, manipulating his trust, destroying what they had built together. "What exactly did James show you?" she asked, needing to understand the full extent of his deception. Dominic's jaw tightened. "Text messages between you and someone named Michael. Intimate messages about meeting up, about how you had to keep it from me. Photos of you with him, looking close." "Michael?" Nora repeated, the pieces falling into place. "My cousin Michael? The one who was staying with me for 2 weeks while he looked for an apartment after his divorce." "Your cousin?" Dominic looked stunned. "Yes, my cousin. The one I told you was coming to visit. The one you were supposed to meet at that dinner I planned, but you canceled because of a business emergency." She shook her head in disbelief. "James met him when he stopped by my apartment to drop off those contract papers for you. He knew exactly who Michael was. The photos were probably completely innocent moments made to look like something else." She sighed. "James was always taking photos at group gatherings, always hovering around me when you weren't looking." Dominic's expression darkened. "He's been my CFO for the past 3 years. He's godfather to my sister's children. I trusted him with everything. And he used that trust to get what he wanted." Nora's voice softened slightly. "Or at least what he thought he wanted." "What do you mean?" "He showed up at my parents' house about 2 months after you left. Said he'd heard we'd broken up and wanted to make sure I was okay." Her laugh was hollow. "I was 5 months pregnant by then, obviously showing with multiples. The look on his face when he saw me, I'll never forget it. He didn't want a ready-made family. He just wanted to win, to take what was yours." Dominic's hands clenched into fists. "I'll destroy him for this." "That won't change the past 5 years," Nora said quietly. "It won't give back what we lost." The door opened, and Dr. Bennett poked his head in. "The children are asking for you, Ms. Winters, and I have those test results whenever you're ready to discuss them." "We'll be right there," she replied, gathering her composure. As they walked toward the playroom, Dominic stopped her with a gentle hand on her arm. "Nora, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but please, let me be part of their lives. Let me try to make up for the time I've lost." She looked into the eyes that had once held her entire world, now filled with a desperation she understood all too well. "They deserve to know their father," she said finally. "But this has to be about them, not us. Not the past." "I understand," he said solemnly. "Thank you." They entered the playroom to find the quadruplets engaged in an elaborate game involving building blocks and stuffed animals. They looked up as the adults entered, their faces brightening at the sight of their mother. "Mommy," Theo called, the quietest of the 4 but always the first to notice her return. "Look what we built. It's a hospital for animals," Emma explained seriously. "Because Dr. Dominic is an animal doctor too." Nora raised an eyebrow at Dominic, who shrugged sheepishly. "I may have mentioned that I sometimes help at the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center." He said he could take us there someday, Lily added hopefully. Can we go, Mommy? Please. The easy way the children had accepted Dominic, their instant connection to him, made Nora's heart ache with both joy and pain. They'd been missing something they hadn't even known to name, and now here he was, filling a space she hadn't been able to fill alone. If you've ever had to make a difficult decision for the sake of your children, hit that like button right now. And if you're wondering how Nora will navigate introducing Dominic as their father, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. The most emotional part of this reunion is still to come, and the confrontation with James will change everything you thought you knew about loyalty and betrayal. Dr. Bennett cleared his throat, bringing everyone's attention back to the reason for their visit. I've reviewed the test results, and I'm happy to say there's no indication of the genetic condition we were concerned about. The children are perfectly healthy. Relief washed over Nora, the tension she'd been carrying since the phone call finally releasing its grip. That's wonderful news. However, Dr. Bennett continued, glancing between Nora and Dominic with newfound understanding, there are some genetic markers that would be helpful to track over time. Dr. Blackwood, perhaps you could explain the significance. Dominic nodded, shifting seamlessly into his professional role despite the emotional turmoil beneath the surface. The children show a rare genetic variation that, while not harmful, could provide valuable insights for research. With your permission, Nora, I'd like to include them in a longitudinal study my foundation is conducting. What kind of study? She asked cautiously. Non-invasive monitoring, developmental assessments, nothing that would disrupt their normal lives. His eyes met hers, conveying a deeper message. It would also give me a medical reason to see them regularly, to be involved in their care. She understood what he was offering, a way to integrate himself into their lives gradually, through a framework that made sense to the children. We'd need to discuss the details, she said finally. Of course. The gratitude in his expression was unmistakable. After finalizing follow-up appointments and collecting prescriptions for children's vitamins, Nora found herself facing the awkward moment of departure. The children were clearly fascinated by Dominic, and he seemed reluctant to let them out of his sight. Perhaps, he suggested hesitantly as they gathered their coats, we could all have lunch? There's a child-friendly cafe just down the street. Before Nora could respond, Max tugged at her sleeve. Can we, Mom? Dr. Dominic says they have the best grilled cheese sandwiches. She looked at her son's hopeful face, then at the three other pairs of eager eyes watching her. All right, she conceded. But we need to be home by 3 for Grandma's therapy session. The cafe was exactly as Dominic had described, bright, colorful, with a small play area visible from every table. As the children settled in with crayons and coloring sheets, Nora found herself sitting across from the man she'd once planned to marry, trying to navigate this surreal new reality. Your mother, Dominic said quietly. How is she doing? The question surprised her. Some days are better than others. The new medication helps with the confusion, but... She shrugged, the gesture conveying what words couldn't. I'm sorry. I remember how close you were to her. A waitress arrived to take their order, giving Nora a moment to compose herself. The children requested grilled cheese sandwiches with enthusiastic certainty, while the adults ordered salads neither of them would probably eat. When they were alone again, Dominic leaned forward. There's something I need to tell you about James. I'm not sure I want to hear anything more about him, Nora said, her voice tight. You need to know this. His expression was grave. 3 months ago, I began noticing discrepancies in the company finances. Small amounts at first, then larger sums being diverted through shell corporations. I hired a forensic accountant to investigate quietly. James was stealing from you? Despite everything, she was shocked. Not just stealing. He was selling proprietary research to competitors, research that could have helped thousands of patients. Dominic's voice hardened. The investigation is complete. I was planning to confront him tomorrow, with the board and legal team present. Nora absorbed this information, connecting it to the man she'd briefly known. He always wanted what you had, she said slowly. Your success, your recognition. Me. But never through his own merit or effort, Dominic finished. Always by taking, manipulating, destroying. They fell silent as the food arrived, both watching as the children attacked their sandwiches with typical 4-year-old enthusiasm. Cheese stretched in long strings from plate to mouth. Giggles erupted over silly faces. Small feet swung happily beneath the table. They're amazing, Dominic said softly. You've done an incredible job with them, Nora. It hasn't been easy, she admitted, but they make everything worthwhile. Tell me about them, please. I want to know everything. And so, over cooling salads and children's laughter, Nora shared the stories of their first 4 years. Theo's early fascination with music, how he hummed before he could talk. Emma's artistic talent, already evident in her detailed drawings. Max's insatiable curiosity about how things worked. His careful observations of the world around him. Lily's natural leadership, organizing her siblings into elaborate games of her own invention. They were born 6 weeks early, she told him. Lily was the smallest, just under 4 pounds. The doctors were concerned about her lung development, but she proved them wrong. She was the first to breathe on her own, the first to leave the NICU. Fighters, Dominic said, his eyes shining with pride. Like their mother. The compliment warmed her despite her determination to remain detached. They had to be. We all did. As lunch concluded and the children grew restless, Nora checked her watch. We should get going. My father will be waiting to drive my mother to her appointment. Of course. Dominic signaled for the check. May I walk you to your car? Outside, the autumn air had turned crisp, the sky a brilliant blue above the city streets. The children skipped ahead, contained within the invisible boundary Nora had trained them to observe, never more than 10 feet from her, always within sight. They're so well behaved, Dominic observed. Most 4-year-olds I see in my practice can barely sit still for an examination, let alone manage public outings so well. Necessity, Nora replied simply. When you're outnumbered 4-1, you establish rules early. They reached her car, a practical minivan with visible signs of wear. As she helped the children into their car seats, a process she had refined to an efficient routine, Dominic stood awkwardly to the side, clearly wanting to help but unsure how. Goodbye, Dr. Dominic, the children called in near unison as they were secured. Goodbye, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. I hope to see you all again very soon. When the children were settled, Nora closed the sliding door and turned to face him. This is complicated, she said quietly. I need time to process everything, to figure out how to explain this to them. I understand. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a business card, writing something on the back before handing it to her. My personal number. Call me when you're ready, day or night. She took the card, their fingers brushing momentarily. I will. Nora. His voice stopped her as she turned to leave. I know I have no right to ask this, but their birth certificates. What name did you put? The question caught her off guard. Winters. My maiden name. I changed mine back after everything. He nodded, absorbing this information. And their full names? Lily Grace Winters. Maxwell James Winters. She stopped, realizing the irony of the middle name she'd chosen before knowing the truth. Emma Rose Winters. Theodore Alexander Winters. Theodore, he repeated softly. After my grandfather. Yes. She hadn't been able to help herself, wanting to give the children some connection to their father's family, even if he never knew them. I remembered how close you were to him. Emotion washed over his face. Thank you for that. For all of it. For raising them so beautifully when I failed you so completely. The sincerity in his voice threatened to crack the protective wall she'd built around her heart. I have to go, she said, turning quickly toward the driver's side. Nora, he called one last time. I'll make this right. Somehow I'll make this right. She didn't respond, couldn't trust her voice not to betray her. Instead, she slipped into the driver's seat and started the engine, focusing on the road ahead rather than the man standing on the sidewalk, watching his children drive away. The drive home was filled with excited chatter from the back seats, the children bubbling with questions about Dr. Dominic and when they might see him again. Nora answered vaguely, her mind racing with the implications of the day's events. Her modest townhouse welcomed them with familiar comfort, toys neatly organized in colorful bins, family photos lining the walls, the slight scent of the cinnamon candles she loved. Her father greeted them at the door, his kind face lined with the strain of caring for his increasingly confused wife. "How was the appointment?" he asked, helping the children with their coats. "All clear," Nora replied, deciding to save the more complicated aspects of the day for a private conversation. "Where's Mom?" "Napping. She had a good morning," recognized everyone at breakfast. The small victory shone in his tired eyes. Later, after the children were occupied with their afternoon quiet time, a sacred hour of books and soft music that Nora had instituted to preserve her sanity, she sat with her father in the kitchen, finally sharing the day's extraordinary turn of events. "Dominic," he repeated, the name familiar yet strange after so many years. "And he had no idea about the children?" "None." Nora cradled her tea, drawing comfort from its warmth. "He thought I'd betrayed him. His friend James fabricated evidence, intercepted my attempts to contact him after I found out about the pregnancy." Her father's expression darkened. "I never believed you'd been abandoned willingly. Not by the man I met. The way he looked at you. I don't know what happens now," she admitted. "He wants to be involved in their lives, and they have a right to know their father, but you're afraid," her father finished gently. "Afraid of disrupting the life you've built, afraid of trusting him again, afraid of what this means for you." "Yes." The simple acknowledgement brought tears to her eyes. What if he disappoints them? What if he changes his mind? What if he doesn't? Her father covered her hand with his own. What if this is the beginning of something better for all of you? If you've ever had to make a difficult decision about forgiveness, hit that like button. And if you're wondering how Nora will introduce Dominic to the children as their father, and what will happen when James discovers his deception has been exposed, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. The most emotional confrontation is still to come, and the healing journey these two broken hearts must navigate will test everything they thought they knew about love and trust. That evening, after the children were tucked into bed with their favorite stories and goodnight kisses, Nora sat alone in her small home office, staring at Dominic's business card. The familiar logo of Blackwood Innovations gleamed in embossed silver against the crisp white background. His personal number scrawled on the back in the same precise handwriting she remembered from love notes and birthday cards. Her phone buzzed with an incoming text message. "Unknown number. I hope it's okay that I got your number from Dr. Bennett. I just wanted to say thank you for today, for letting me meet them, for telling them good things about me all these years, even when you had every reason not to. Dominic." She stared at the message, emotions warring within her. Before she could decide whether to respond, another text arrived. "The board meeting with James is tomorrow at 9 a.m. I thought you should know." This time, she typed back, "What will you do?" His response came quickly. "What I should have done 5 years ago. Listen to the truth." The next morning dawned gray and rainy, matching Nora's unsettled mood. She moved through the familiar routine of breakfast and school preparation on autopilot, her mind repeatedly drifting to the confrontation happening across town in the gleaming Blackwood Innovations headquarters. "Mommy, you're not listening," Lily complained as she recounted an elaborate dream involving unicorns and talking trees. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," Nora apologized, refocusing on her daughter's animated face. "Tell me again about the rainbow forest." After dropping the children at their preschool, Nora drove to her office, grateful that her flexible work arrangement allowed her to process the emotional upheaval in relative privacy. Miranda, her boss, noticed her distraction immediately. "Everything okay with the quads?" she asked, poking her head into Nora's small workspace. "They're fine," Nora assured her. "It's just, their father is back in the picture." Unexpectedly, Miranda's eyebrows shot up. "The mysterious ex who vanished? Wow. How do you feel about that? I honestly don't know, Nora admitted. It's complicated. Complicated is your middle name, honey, Miranda said with a sympathetic smile. Take whatever time you need today. Around noon, Nora's phone rang. Dominic's number flashed on the screen. Hello? She answered, her heart racing. It's done. His voice was tight with controlled emotion. James confessed to everything when confronted with the evidence. The financial fraud, the corporate espionage, and what he did to us. The board has removed him, and the legal team is preparing criminal charges. How did he react? She asked, unable to suppress her curiosity about the man who had caused so much damage. He tried to justify it at first, claimed he was protecting me from you. Dominic's disgust was palpable. When that didn't work, he broke down, said he'd been in love with you since the moment we met, that he couldn't stand seeing you with me. That doesn't excuse what he did. No, it doesn't. Pause. He asked about you if I'd seen you. I didn't tell him about the children. That's not his business. The thought of James knowing about her children sent a chill through Nora. Thank you for that. There's something else, Dominic continued. Before security escorted him out, he said something I can't stop thinking about. He said, I ruined your life once. Don't let me ruin it twice by being too proud to fight for her now. Nora's breath caught. What does that mean to you? It means I don't want to waste another day without you and our children in my life. His voice softened. But I know I can't just walk back in and expect everything to be as it was. I know I have to earn your trust again, earn my place in their lives. Yes, you do, she agreed quietly. Will you let me try? Will you give me that chance? The question hung between them, weighted with 5 years of pain and missed opportunities, but also with the possibility of healing, of a future she had stopped allowing herself to imagine. Start with the children, she said finally. They need to know who you really are to them. We'll take it from there. When? The hope in his voice was unmistakable. This weekend. Saturday morning. They're always at their best after pancakes. His laugh, warm and genuine, stirred memories she'd tried so hard to bury. I'll be there. Thank you, Nora. Saturday arrived with sunshine and nervous anticipation. Nora had spent the previous evening preparing the children, explaining in simple terms that Dr. Dominic wasn't just a doctor they'd met at the clinic, but someone very special to their family. Is he your friend, Mommy? Emma had asked, always sensitive to emotional nuances. He was once, Nora had answered truthfully, and maybe he will be again. The doorbell rang precisely at 10 o'clock. Dominic stood on the porch, casual in jeans and a soft sweater, holding 4 identical gift bags in different colors. Red, blue, green, and purple. You remembered their colors, Nora observed, touched by the thoughtfulness. I remember everything you told me about them, he replied, stepping inside. The children were waiting in the living room, unusually quiet, sensing the importance of the moment. They brightened at the sight of the colorful bags. Hello again, Dominic said, kneeling to their level. I brought you each a little something. The gifts were perfect, a miniature drum set for Theo, an art kit for Emma, a build-your-own robot for Max, and a doctor's kit for Lily. As the children exclaimed over their presents, Nora and Dominic exchanged a look of shared understanding. It was time. Children, Nora said gently, gathering them close. Remember how I told you that your daddy didn't know about you? That there was a misunderstanding that kept him away? For solemn faces nodded. Well, sometimes life gives us second chances to fix mistakes. She took a deep breath. Dr. Dominic is your daddy. The revelation was met with wide eyes and open mouths. Then Lily, always the first to speak, asked the question that mattered most. Are you staying now? Dominic's eyes filled with tears as he nodded. Yes, if you'll let me. I want to know all of you, to be your dad, to watch you grow up. I've missed so much already, and I'm so sorry for that. But why didn't you know about us? Max asked, his analytical mind seeking logical explanations. Someone told me a lie, Dominic explained simply, and I believed it instead of talking to your mom. It was the biggest mistake of my life. Mommy says mistakes are okay if you learn from them, Theo offered quietly. Your mom is very wise, Dominic smiled, glancing at Nora with gratitude. Do we call you Daddy now? Emma asked, practical as always. Only if you want to, he assured her. We have time to get to know each other first. The conversation continued, the children's natural curiosity leading to questions about where Dominic lived, if he had pets, whether he knew how to make pancakes as good as Mommy's. He answered each one patiently, his joy at connecting with them evident in every word. Later, as the children played with their new gifts, Dominic and Nora sat at the kitchen table, watching them through the doorway. They're taking it remarkably well, he observed. Children are resilient, she replied, and they've always wondered about you. Having answers is comforting, even if those answers are complicated. And you? He asked carefully. How are you taking all this? She considered the question, searching for the most honest answer. I'm cautiously optimistic. For them, primarily. For us, that's a longer road. I understand. He hesitated, then reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of hers. I want you to know that I never stopped loving you, Nora. Even when I thought you'd betrayed me, even when I was angry and hurt, underneath it all, I still loved you. That's why it hurt so much. The confession hung in the air between them, raw and vulnerable. Nora looked at his outstretched hand, then slowly placed her own within it. I can't make any promises, she said softly, but I'm willing to see where this goes, for all our sakes. His fingers closed gently around hers, the simple contact bridging 5 years of separation. That's all I ask. In the months that followed, they established a new normal. Dominic rearranged his schedule to be present for school events and weekend activities. He purchased a house in the same neighborhood, close enough for impromptu visits but separate enough to give Nora the space she needed. He attended every doctor's appointment, researched the best schools for when the children started kindergarten, and never missed a promised visit, no matter how demanding his work became. Slowly, cautiously, Nora allowed herself to trust again. Not blindly as before, but with open eyes and clear boundaries. They began with co-parenting, then friendship, then tentative dates while her parents watched the children. 1 year after their chance encounter at the Pediatric Center, Dominic invited Nora to dinner at the botanical garden where they'd once planned to marry. As twilight fell and lights twinkled among the flowers, he took her hands in his. This past year has been the greatest gift of my life, he said, his eyes reflecting the same devotion she remembered from before. Getting to know our children, watching them flourish, seeing you as the incredible mother you've become. I know we can never get back the time we lost, but I want to spend every day moving forward together. From his pocket, he withdrew not a ring, but a small, worn photograph. The ultrasound image of the quadruplets that she'd sent to his office 5 years ago, returned unopened. James kept this, he explained, his voice thick with emotion. It was in his desk drawer. He never destroyed it, just kept it from me. When the security team cleared out his office, they found it. Nora stared at the image, the first picture of their children, the one she'd sent with such hope and fear, never knowing if he'd received it. I should have been there, Dominic whispered. I should have been by your side through all of it. You're here now, she said, finally allowing herself to acknowledge the healing that had taken place. That's what matters to them. And to me. I love you, Nora. I never stopped. I never will. He reached into his pocket again, this time withdrawing a small velvet box. I'm not asking for an answer tonight. I know we're still finding our way back to each other. But I want you to have this, to know that whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be waiting. Inside the box was a ring, not the elaborate diamond he'd given her years ago, but a simple band set with 5 small birthstones, one for each of the children, and one for Nora herself. It's beautiful, she breathed, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gesture. Take all the time you need, he assured her. We have the rest of our lives. 3 months later, on an ordinary Tuesday evening as they cleaned up after dinner with the children, Nora turned to Dominic with quiet certainty. Yes, she said simply. He looked up from the dish he was drying, confusion crossing his features. Yes, she smiled, the last of her reservations finally dissolving in the warmth of the life they'd begun to rebuild. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, we can be a family, officially, completely. Yes to everything we lost and found again. The dish towel dropped forgotten as he crossed the kitchen to take her in his arms, their embrace witnessed by 4 curious pairs of eyes peering around the doorway. Are you going to be our real daddy now? Lily asked, always the spokesperson for the group. Dominic knelt down, opening his arms to include all 4 children in the moment. I've always been your real daddy, he said gently. In my heart, from the moment I saw you. This just makes it official for everyone else. As the children swarmed them with hugs and excited questions about the wedding, Nora caught Dominic's gaze over their heads. The journey had been long and painful, filled with misunderstandings and lost time. But looking at the joy surrounding them now, she knew that some loves were worth fighting for, worth forgiving for, worth building a future on, even when the past had tried its best to tear them apart. If you believe that true love deserves a second chance, hit that like button. And if you've ever experienced the healing power of forgiveness in your own life, share your story in the comments below. Subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison for more stories that remind us that even in our darkest moments, hope and love can find their way back to us when we least expect it. Remember, sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come after what we thought were endings. And sometimes, the family we're meant to have is waiting just around the corner, in a pediatric care center we never planned to visit, with a truth we never expected to find. Thank you for joining me for this remarkable journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. I'm Mr. Harrison, and I'll see you in the next Timeless Love Tale.